Welcome back, friends of audio. Today we have a tiny amplifier that will fit literally in the palm of your hand that promises 800 watts. Guess what? We're going to find out. Does it really do it? Let's see. There are times in my Amazon searches where I come across something that I just think is interesting. Today, I did come across this Banda 800 watt 4-channel amplifier, the BD 800.4. It was just over $100, and I said, you know what? It'll be interesting to find out if this amplifier is really legit. Let's get it open out of the plastic. Open up the package here and see what's inside. We just have an owner's manual here that unfolds into 4 separate pages, and not a whole lot of information here. Just shows you how to wire up the amplifier, shows you the ratings, etc. Then we have the amplifier in a cellophane package here with a warning on the end that says, hey, there are no internal fuses, so make sure you externally fuse this amplifier. Don't be team no fuse. That's the team you don't want to be on. Now let's tear into the package here to get a closer look at the amplifier. Take off the cellophane, which is wrapped up obviously with some heat to keep it nice and tight. And here you can see, fits in the palm of your hand, 800.4 amplifier. And if we look on Amazon, they have several different colors. I got the black one, but you can get it in red and orange and other colors. At the time of this video, $106, which honestly is not bad for a 4-channel amp providing 800 watts if that's really what it does. So let's take a closer look here at the amp itself. You can see the Banda BD 800.4 on the top. You can see the Banda audio parts there. And we see the model number here, 800.4, 4 ohms bridge, 4x200 watts. And then we see a short temperature and an on LED at the end. Now it's hard to get over how tiny this amplifier is, which you can see here on one end of the amp. We just have some very basic settings. Pretty much we have a gain control, which goes from 0.25 up to 3.4 volts. We have a crossover switch for low, full, or high pass at 90 hertz, 12 dB per octave. And then we have the line level RCAs. We have 4 channels of RCA inputs. You do have to use all 4 channels. There is no 2 to 4 channel switch like we like to see, but it is what it is. On the opposite side, we have a whole bunch of the same size terminals here. They're all 8 gauge, and therefore all the different settings, including the ground, remote, and 12 volt. Also, we have the speaker outputs, and notice channels 1 and 2 are on the far right. Then channels 3 and 4 are on the left side. Again, that's a little confusing, and it's not noted on the amp, unfortunately. Compared to a SoundStream amplifier from the 90s, a 4-channel amp, look at how small this Banda amp is. Speaking of small, on the long side, 5.25 inches for the width, 4.6 inches for the height, 2 inches. Again, tiny little amplifier. As for the ratings, 4 ohms, 100 watts by 4, 2 ohms, 200 watts by 4, 4 ohms bridge, 400 by 2. If the voltage is up to 14.4, 150 by 4 at 4 ohms, 230 by 4 at 2 ohms, or 460 by 2 at 4 ohms bridged. Wow. Now check the way this amp shares the terminals in the center for the speaker outputs. This is really weird. I've seen other amps do this before, and I don't really like it, even though that's what happens inside the amp. Here we got the amp turned on. You can see the blue LEDs. Blue means good. Now it's time to fire up the SMD Demore Engineering Amplifier dyno so we can check the output power of this amplifier. If you haven't seen these tests before, on the left, the power output in watts. In the middle, the ohm load. On the right, the voltage of the dyno. We'll also have a clamp so that we can estimate this amplifier's efficiency. First up, we'll start off with the 4-channel test. We'll try 4 ohms first. Again, at 12.6 volts, it's rated 100 watts by 4. So we'll try the test at 1 kilohertz. That is a certified test up to 1% distortion. And here we go. Can we get the 100 by 4? Yes, we can. 134 and 129. So around 132 watts average times 4. Pretty crazy here. Let's try it uncertified up to the clipping point. Can we get any more power? Here it goes. And just very slightly, 135, 129, so that's about 133 by 4 average. We have 2 of the channels here wired up to the dyno. The other 2 are wired up to resistors, so we're providing it across the board a 4 ohm load on the amplifier. It's loading down the whole power supply, all the channels as we normally do. Dynamically, 1 kilohertz burst, 139 watts times 4 at 13.39 volts. Now let's give it a listen in the 3-channel mode with the speakers. Next up, we'll try 2 ohms 4-channel test at 1 kilohertz. It's rated 200 watts by 4 at 12.6 volts. This is the 800.4 that you're promised 800 watts. So here we go. Can we get 200 watts per channel? Right at it, my friends. About 203 by 4 at 12.94 volts. Consider me shocked, impressed, whatever else you want to say for this palm-sized amplifier to put out 800 true watts at lower voltage. I mean, we're like right at 13 volts. Uncertified up to the clipping point. Again, we're getting over 200 watts times 4 for this tiny amplifier. Dynamically, we'll send the 1 kilohertz burst track into the amp. Look at this, even more, even crazier power, over 240, almost 250 watts by 4 at 13.26. Back to the music. Now we will bridge the amp for the 2-channel test. Again, it's a 4-channel amp. We'll do 4, 3, or 2 channels. Here you can see we have the amp bridged with the outer speaker wires. The left on one side, the positive on the other, as shown in the manual. At 4 ohms, it's rated 400 watts by 2 at 12.6 volts. So let's try it out here. Certified 1 kilohertz. Can we get the 400 watts by 2? Dun 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 dun. Yes, we can. About 422 watts average by 2 under 13 volts. Wow, craziness. Let's try it uncertified up to the clipping point. Can we get even more power up to clipping? Hold on to your hats. And there you go, about 420 watts average times 4. Times 2. For this tiny handheld amplifier. And dynamically, look at this. Oh yes, my friends, over 850 watts, 860 watts total at 13.29 volts. Let's go back to a little bit of music and hear it thump. All right, friends, here you have the results. You can pause this if you want to see all the results, but efficiency was good across the board. It did its rated power. I'm kind of blown away for $100. Check out that subwoofer flex. Mids and highs weren't bad either, but let's take a closer look inside to find out what makes this tiny amplifier tick. You know, we've always got to know what makes it work the way that it does, because for it to do 800 watts and be in such a tiny package like this, I'm intrigued. Here you go. Look at that transformer. Got some capacitors. We got some inductors there near the outputs. Let's take a closer look here at the capacitors. 2200 microfarad, 50 volts. Also, this amplifier is powered by the MA5332MS Class D amplifier chip. As you can see here, was what it looks like by Infineon. And yes, this thing is rated at 2 by 200 watts per chip. So that means 800 watts total for 2 chips, and this is what it did. So very impressive. This amplifier also has a fan on the bottom. It stayed nice and cool during the test. It did not get overheated. Very impressive. And check out these tiny transistors, the RFR 7440s. You can put like 4 of these on the head of a dime. Tiny. And here is the internals, the Predator view of the amplifier. You can see there the transformer is the only part that got kind of warm. Rest of the amp did not get very warm at all. I was impressed overall how this amplifier performed. Sound quality was okay. It pushed the subwoofer. Well, let's move on to the pros and cons of this tiny amplifier. First up, it actually did its rated power, which is crazy. It's inexpensive, around $100. Tiny footprint, 2, 3, or 4 channel operation. It does have high pass, low pass, or bypass for the crossovers. Has active cooling, has a fan on the bottom. Decent sound quality, I wasn't mad. Great efficiency. Fitted anywhere. Things that could be better. Obviously, the shared speaker terminals are kind of odd for people, so you have to get used to that. There's no integrated fuses, so make sure you use a fuse. The crossovers are fixed at 90 Hz. They're not variable, and you will need to use all 4-channel RCA inputs to get all the outputs of the amp. Wish they put a switch on it so you could just use 2-channel inputs and get 4 out. Overall, I was super impressed with this $100 Banda BD 800.4. Did its rated power, stayed cool. Sounded okay. You won't be able to tell in a car going down the road that the sound quality is not quite as good as some amps maybe. But seriously, close-up listening, I was impressed. But let's move on to 2 ohms dynamic to find out how much power we can get. 1 kilohertz. Check this out. We're talking some big numbers here. 1,427 watts total dynamic at 2 ohms bridge, 1 kilohertz. Big D, I'm out of here.
A lot of y'all seem to want to test my pride. That's cool, cause I've never been no less than 9. 4 G's on the system, any less a crime. The trunk breaks open when I flex the vibe. A windshield crack, an expensive prize, but it's worth every penny, all cents aside. What sets aside? I need from you is to check the sign. Better check the signs, put some checks aside. We've got sun down and MDX inside. 140 dB club, feel blessed for mine. 150 is the goal, like to fix my crime. As long as I'm breathing, I'ma stretch the ride. King Kong in the trunk, mean drop of the bump. D-Wiz verified the L bump, that is just too hard. Got big D-Wiz in the trunk.